All right, thank you, Grace, and thank you everyone for coming here in the morning. Yesterday I was speaking at a school soon after lunch. It was very hard for me to keep the students awake. So I hope you guys will be awake and will spend the next 20 minutes with me. But what I'm going to speak about actually is, I think, less about equality, but more about inequality. Because the inequality that I look at personally in my work or in my profession is about economic inequality. And we try and use housing as a medium to bring in equality in the world. And I'm going to tell you that there's certain things that I'm going to speak today, and I don't know if it's being recorded. It's going to shake up a few things for sure, so you'll be awake. It's a lot of, what I want to speak about is certain things which go in the background in shaping up what Billion Bricks is, how we operate, what kind of things we drive, which you don't get to read through our website or other resources. But before I go in there, I want to start with a simple question by asking all of you, what do you think are some of the world's biggest problems that we are facing today? Anyone? Water? Sorry, what was the next one? Food? Donald Trump. Right, Trump, and politics is a major issue that we are facing today. Waste. Fake news. Right.
Racism. Overconsumption.
Right. I'm running out of space here. In fact, I must tell you that this is the longest list I've ever had. Generally, I have to really push people to come up with what the problems are. So I'm quite impressed for sure. Right? So as you know, I mean, we are going to be focusing a lot on inequality today. But the point is that today we are facing a lot of these problems which we do recognize. And in all of us, in some capacity, are actually trying to solve these as well in our little way that we can do. But the problems are not being solved. And that's something that Billion Bricks wants to look at. And in perspective, just to put the inequality, the wealth inequality in perspective, Oxfam came up with a report in 2016 which had this statistic that 8 people in the world, just 8 people in the world, the richest people in the world have the same amount of wealth equivalent to the 50% people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. So 3.6 billion people hold the same amount of wealth which the top 8 people in the world hold. And that's a damning statistic in terms of the wealth inequality that we see. If we were to divide the entire global wealth of about $251 trillion to everyone, it would come to about $33,000 to every person who's living. If you know the per capita income in Singapore, it's about $54,000. But at $33,000, the entire world would be a developed country. So that's the kind of scale of issues we are talking about. This is a person called Lala Kale, one of the people that we work with. He's been actually our first customer for one of the shelters that we've designed. He cleans sewer in Mumbai. He has a family with 4 children. And he lives in Mumbai for about 6 months and travels for 6 months to his village. His income is about $10. According to World Bank, he is not under the poverty line. But he lives in one of the most expensive cities in the world, and at $10, this is all he can afford. This is his home. And there are millions of people like this today it's believed that about 60 million people in the world are being displaced for a lot of these reasons, for water, wealth inequality, for poverty, for politics, and that number is growing bigger and bigger every day, and we don't know how to solve this problem. And when we try and solve them, we solve them in forums where the people who are trying to build the solutions are actually not part of the problem, or they haven't faced the problem directly. A lot of these people, they run the biggest foundations in the world. They're foundations, when they come to small organizations like us to give us some grants and money, they ask us questions about community empowerment, about community involvement, inclusiveness. But when the discussions about solving poverty, climate change, water, fake news, politics happens, inclusiveness is not part of the conversation there. The poor who are impacted are not part of the conversation. We, the rich people, think that we can develop the solutions and we can solve all the world's problems. So it's always a top-down approach. The person that you are seeing on the right, he got the biggest donation in the world ever by the second richest person in the world. That's how the whole economics of the world is working today, and we need to rethink some of these things. So I'm going to go through 7 points, which I think will highlight why some of these problems that we are facing and why we are building a world which is more and more unequal than ever before. The first one is about smart leadership. Right? We all talk about leadership, we talk about entrepreneurs who are coming. This gentleman, we all like him, right? I mean, he's my hero as well, and I keep reading his books all the time. Right? He's one of the most genius people that we always think of. But what problem out of these did he solve? I'm sure 60, 70% of us are carrying the device that he made for us. But what problem did that device solve? When he came back to Apple, the first product that he made was iPod. The problem that iPod wanted to solve was that we can carry 1,000 songs in our pocket. Was that a problem that we were facing? We were all happy with our Discman and Walkman, right? And there were crappy products out there, but that's the problem that the smartest person in the world wanted to solve, and he solved it, creating so many other problems for us, which we don't know how to solve, right? I mean, I myself is part of that problem. I can't get myself away from my phone. So why didn't we get the smartest person in the world to look at any of these problems so they could be solved? So we don't have the smartest leaders in the world, and we have mediocre leaders like myself who are trying to solve the difficult problems in the world. And that, I think, is one of the key challenges of why we are in an unequal world. But not everyone is born a leader, right? There are others who are not leaders, but they are still smart people. And I mean, this room is full of those smart people. This is one of the biggest companies in the world today, right? People are expecting this would be the first $1 trillion company in the world. They hire the most number of MBAs coming out of the top schools in the world, be it Harvard, London Business School, anywhere they go, whichever country they are operating in, they hire the largest number of smartest people who are coming. And what do those smartest people do? They take Amazon Prime, spend their hours of energy and training in schools, and make it from 48 hours to go to 24 hours, from 24 hours to 2 hours. And when they come to Singapore, they fail. Right? Who tried to use Amazon Prime in the last 2 days? Right? Did it work for you? Right? So you have all these people with so much of knowledge, so much of money spent by governments, by their institutions, by their parents, but they keep trying to make the rich companies richer and richer. And we keep thinking that they're solving these problems. And what I'm saying is not new. Businesses have realized this, that this is not correct, what they are doing. And they try and do their bit through various different modes. And some people have even tried to evolve business models and use their business resources to actually help the world. Do you guys know this picture? This is the balloon by Google, right? They're investing $1 billion or more than that in ensuring, just like Facebook, that internet goes to everyone in the world. So they are trying to ensure the equality of internet. So they're spending billions of dollars of their resources in ensuring that everyone in the world has equal access to internet. This is a picture from Somalia. So they are trying to help these people ensure that they don't have to stand like this for their mobile phone connections because they'll have a balloon hovering somewhere up there. But do these people need water, shelter, education first, or do they need internet first? Do we want to put iPhones in their hands first, or do we want to solve any of these problems for them first? Somalia, as one of the poorest countries in the world, is dealing with huge problems of politics, why people can't come out of poverty. And we are using our resources, we are thinking we are helping the world, but in reality we are helping our businesses. Because our problem solving is so associated with the business that we are in that we can't detach ourselves. And these are some of the smartest leaders that we see in the world, right? You find them every day, every month in Forbes, Fortune, Inc., any magazine. So businesses realized that this is an issue. So they said, okay, why don't we start businesses which have a purpose? So we don't have to do it as a side thing, but we do it as part of the business so we can build a world which is more equal. This is one of those businesses, Tom's shoes. I think some of you might be wearing as well, right? And I, at Billion Bricks, follow Tom's model all the time, right? And the simple model, I loved the model, and this was true disruption in my opinion in some ways. Where for every shoe that they make or they sell, they give one to someone who can't afford. So it solves the problem of so many kids. They've actually, I think, given about 12 million shoes till now. So 12 million kids have access to shoes, but did they solve any of these problems? Was that the biggest problem that we could solve? That was probably an easier problem. Have we been able to track if those kids have come out of poverty? Tom's is today valued at about $300 million. Do you know the amount of books, schools that can be built with that money? And it is solving a problem. I'm not saying it's not solving a problem, but is it solving a big problem? And we have so much resource in the world. We are the richest society in humanity ever. And we are not able to solve the problems that we are facing. And we are becoming more and more unequal every day. And we realize it, but we don't do anything about it. So when Tom's model wasn't good enough, we said, why don't we come up with some new business ideas? So 2 years ago, some of the largest corporations in the world, and I'll not name them because this is being recorded, they brought some of their smartest leaders who they thought were future CEOs, right? And this was a group of, I think, every corporation had about 6 of these people coming together, and they traveled around the world for 1 year, went into 4 cities, including Singapore, and came up with what the new business of the future would be like, what the new future CEO needs to look at to solve some of these problems. And the solution they came up with after that, which actually is being implemented as well, was to go in certain cities of the world, look at rag pickers who are generating waste, which is one of the big problems that we are facing, tie them with some designers in the Western world, and make them make bags and other products from the waste. And the idea is to increase their incomes. And beautiful idea. You find a lot of nonprofits working on this model where they go into villages, look at the supply chain, make people make rugs, toys, everything. And their incomes also do increase. You go to impact conferences, you'll see these nonprofits talk about the fact that the incomes have doubled, tripled, in some cases have become 5 times. But when you are taking people from $1 or $2 a day to $10, even 5x is not enough. If we earn $5,000 a month in Singapore maybe, and we get, say, a 5% increase every year, that's about $250. Even if you increase their income by 5x, the delta between my income increase and their income increase is $240. They'll never be able to catch up. And we don't realize it because we think we are doing great, but we need to disrupt this mentality and try and think of these people, of the poor, if we want to make them equal, just how we think of our children. Do we send our children to make rugs today? We all want our children to be doing AI and coding and everything, because we know those are the professions of the future. We had 3 speakers yesterday where I was speaking in a school. Everyone talked about leadership, about social leadership, doing good for the society. But the only question which came out of the student was, how should I write my letter to the university so I can be on the Wall Street tomorrow? And we all thought that was the wrong thing, but I don't think it's the wrong thing. That's his aspiration. We are all part of it. Don't we like when the Wall Street guys are driving a Ferrari? So we think that they are doing wrong, but in reality, we are all part of it. And so we think of solutions for the poor often poorly. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why a lot of these problems are not being solved. And they're not only being solved, but they're actually becoming bigger and bigger. So what could I do with all this, right? So I actually spoke about these things for about 3-4 years, and I kept thinking about these things for 3-4 years, right? My background is in architecture, right? So I was doing commercial projects, majority in Southeast Asia. This was in Kuala Lumpur, some expensive homes, condominiums, some tall towers. And I said, why do I keep thinking about these things and talking about things? Why don't I do something? Till when would I keep asking others to do it? What have I done? I had never done anything for the poor, actually. I had never even volunteered with a nonprofit and an organization. I had never gone, did anything, not even given $1 to a charity. Not even bought anything from a social business, nothing ever, never, no Tom shoes for me. So eventually I said, okay, maybe I should do something. And the cities I was working in, I could see that the people were getting poorer, even though there was more wealth. I come from Delhi. The quality of life when I grew up there between now and then has actually dropped. It takes longer for me to go from point A to point B. I see more people on the streets, less access to healthcare, education, safety. So we have more money, more talent, our IQ is going up, but we are not improving our lifestyle in a lot of the cities where we work in. I think Singapore is an exception. And I said, okay, I will try and see if I can build an organization which will solve this problem. So we will not be an organization which will just build homes, because so many people are building homes, but we are not able to catch up. The number of people who need homes today is about 1 billion, and this number is going to double in 15 years to about 2 billion. In fact, if you know the Millennium Development Goals, there were 15 of them. Or sorry, not 15, but the Millennium Development Goals, only 2 we have not done better since 2000 when they were started. Between 2000 and 2015, we are doing worse off. Climate change and housing are 2. In others, we have actually done better than before. And we will not design poorly for the poor. We will not come up with poor solutions. We will not come up with the cheapest solutions. We will come up with what the poor need for themselves. And we will not look at poor as poor. We will not look at them as beneficiaries. We will look at them as our customers. They need to demand from us, and we need to provide a service or a quality product to them. But soon after I started, I think within 1 month, I started the organization in October of 2013. There was an incident in India where about 50,000 people had been rendered homeless. And they had been moved from their houses in their villages and towns, and they had been put in these transit camps. This is an actual picture of the transit camp. And people forgot that they were living there. And winters arrived, and about 50 children died over a course of a few weeks. And nobody said anything. And me, as an organization, we were about a month old, and I thought, okay, this is something we need to do something about. But I didn't know what to do. And I was scared what to do. And all I did was the easiest thing. Picked up my iPhone and wrote a lot of emails to government officials, to NGOs that were working there, saying, how can I come in and help? I received only a couple of responses. And the only responses I received were asking for blankets. And I knew that blankets don't work in these conditions. People had blankets. You can see he's got warm clothes. But the temperatures are so cold, it's windy, that they fail. So a lot of times we don't even know what solutions to ask for. We keep asking for poor solutions for the poor. So me and my team went down and spent about 6 months traveling across various cities in India and Nepal and seeing how people live on the streets when they have to brave the extreme weather, which is cold, heat, and rains. About 3,000 people die in Delhi every year just because of summer heat. And so we came up with this idea of a shelter, which is like a giant sleeping bag, where the structure is 3D printed, which means you can print it anywhere. If you can't 3D print it, you can actually just go in and buy the pipes from any plumbing shop. And you can build together a structure. And you put on top a skin, which is insulated just like a sleeping bag. And all it does is traps your own body heat to keep you warm. In summers, it can be reversed to actually reflect the heat out. And we designed it for a family of 5 so the women and children can sleep together because in a sleeping bag, you can't fit them in. In a blanket, you can't fit them in. Women, they have to take shower on the street. They have to change clothes on the street. They have to feed their kids on the street. So they could at least find a private space to be inside. And I thought I'd done a great job. I went to City of Delhi, and I said, I want to put these. And the government said, why do you want to do this? We will take care of all the people. But I still insisted, and I deployed about 15 tents. Actually, the number is more like 12 or 13. So I only helped about 60 people with these tents. This was in 2016 for about 6 months, about January till July. So only 60 people is what Billion Bricks helped with these tents. And we were published all over the world for helping these 60 people. We had over 40 million views. We had some celebrities write about it. Any media publication you can think of would be covering our stories. Me and my wife, we were traveling in Ladakh at that time, and we couldn't keep up with the emails that were dropping in. We had about 5,000 emails over the course of a few days. So just for helping 60 people, we got that much of publicity. If I would have helped 60 people when I was working in my commercial practice, I would have been kicked out of my job. And that's the problem with the nonprofit sector, that it's a monopoly. My customers, there's nobody else working for them. So whatever I do, little I do, I get a lot of publicity. I get an opportunity to stand here and speak to you. Did anybody hear me 4 years ago? So what has changed? I'm still the same mediocre leader, and I've only helped 60 people. I'm not Steve Jobs. But because we think anything small for the poor is very big, and that can make us complacent. You know what happens to monopolies? They stop to innovate. They kill themselves because they think what they think is right. They think they don't have to move fast enough. They think they know the world. They've already conquered it. And I don't want Billion Bricks to become this monopoly. I want other players to come in. We know what competition does, what competition did for the car industry. Tesla would have not been born if the monopoly of all the American car companies would have continued, or Japanese companies. So we want Billion Bricks to be innovating and to be really solving the problem and not just helping 60 people. And we knew about this thing when all this media exposure happened to us, and we wanted to change it. So we went out and we used that to our advantage and did a Kickstarter campaign to fundraise for more tents, so we could help not 60, but about 3,000 people. So you fundraise for about 500 tents, or about 100,000 US dollars in maybe about 45 days. But the interesting thing that happened in that Kickstarter campaign, that a lot of the tents that we sold on Kickstarter went to people who wanted for their own families for recreational use, and not for the homeless, which I thought was a breakthrough. And the reason I thought that was a breakthrough is because if you've heard Elon Musk, how he talks about his cars, he says it takes at least 3 versions to get your cars or any product to be a mass market product. The amount of investment it takes to build something new is huge. The first car that he came up with costed $100K. How many people could afford a $100K car? And Model 3 is just coming out, which is at $30K. It has taken him so many years and so many versions to come with that. But Billion Bricks, with our one product, which was not poorly designed for the poor, but looking at poor as a customer, we had designed it for the homeless, but the rich were buying it. We had reversed this thing, what everybody in the world thinks is true, that we have to keep making products cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and more affordable for the poor. We designed tents which were $200, which the poor can afford and the rich can afford as well. And a lot of rich people come to me in conferences when they look at the tent. They say, why don't you design a poorer version for the poor? Why are they so nice? And I don't want to do it. You are not my customer. And so we are rewriting the rules of the game in some ways. The picture that you saw earlier was actually our online shop. So we set up an online shop, and it's been a sheer surprise for us, where homeless from the US and Europe are coming. They're putting in their credit card details, and purchasing these tents which we are shipping to them. And nobody can believe it, but it is happening. And it will happen more and more as my friends at Google and Facebook will send those planes everywhere in the world. Everyone will have a phone, and they'll be able to order those from other countries as well. But at the moment, we are going quite traditional. So we built a sales team in Delhi and Mumbai, where our sales team is going deep into homeless communities and selling them. And Lala Kale, that picture that I showed you, was one of the first buyers. And the reason he bought the tent was for his daughters, because he wants them to study well. He sends them to an English medium school, which is a big thing in India, in a private school. And he wants them to study well, but they can't study on the street. If you guys know Mumbai, it rains like anything for 3 months of the year. And he wants them to save them from that rain so they can continue to study. But this thing doesn't come with easy, it's not easy. I get questions asked all the time on things like whether your products are affordable, what materials are you using? And the most interesting question that I like, which I love, when people ask me what is the end of life cycle of your tents, which means when these 500 tents have no use, they'll go into waste and they'll actually make the problem of waste bigger. That's the problem they ask me, and it's a very valid question. But I want these people to not worry about the poor and the 500 tents that will go in the waste, but to actually ask this question to guys like these. 22 billion bottles are sold every year. Less than 20% are recycled. And we don't ask that question to the guys who have the resources to solve the problem. You think they can't invest resources in coming up with a bottle which doesn't harm the environment? But when it comes to working for the poor, we want our solutions to be so perfect. We want them to be inclusive. We want them to be affordable. We want them to be good quality. And we want them to be environmentally friendly. But we don't want that for ourselves. And that's what keeps equality and inequality in an imbalance. We need to ask the same questions to everyone and not just to a few. And we need to ask the same questions to ourselves as well. Then only the balance will occur. So I'm not here, So what I wanted to show with this graph in the end is the fact that we are working on all these ideas, and Billion Bricks is also trying to evolve a new business model. But this graph shows that it's not working. The inequality gap is increasing and will continue to increase. So there's no silver bullet here. We don't have an answer. But we need to think. And this is where we need to disrupt ourselves. That's the coolest word today in the business world. We need to disrupt ourselves, then expect others to disrupt. We need to start thinking of the poor, that we need to help them. They don't need our help. They haven't asked for our help. We keep thinking we have to give back. We don't have to give back. We shouldn't take at the first place that we need to give back. So let's rethink the way we think of inequality or any of those big issues. Let's not look at incremental changes. Let's look at disruptive changes for the poor. And let's try and solve the problem of equality. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. Yeah, but thank you so much. I mean, I really think it was such an amazing talk and very insightful on many different perspectives on the theme equality, as well as many of the leadership people out there at the moment. So we do have questions, so you can't go away just yet. Now, anyone want to start with the first question? Yep, okay, there's two. Did you want to go first? Because you've got the little baby.
So first of all, thank you very much. It's very inspiring. My question is, you showed the Tom Shoes model before. Have you considered implementing your business model, having the rich frame for the tents, not the tent structures that should be used before?
Yes, actually we are trying that, and that's what I meant, that I actually
Sorry,
look at
can I
Tom's.
just repeat the question because of the video? So it was Tom's Shoes. How can you replicate, or have you looked at replicating the Tom Shoes model for Billion Bricks and the tents?
Yeah. So in fact, if you go on our website, weatherhide.org, we have 3 options to buy the tents. One is if you want to gift to a homeless person, so somebody can actually ship it to themselves, or through us, gift it at a different price. Or you could buy for yourself, but at a higher price. Or you could do a buy one, gift one, where for everyone that you buy, you actually gift one. In fact, if you go on our website, what we built in is a platform where every tent that we give to a homeless person is actually tracked with a QR code. So you know exactly where the tent has gone, which family is using it, and what has their feedback been. So we are trying that, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. You had a question? Could you come up just because we need you at the mic? Yeah. And the mic won't go that far.
2 questions. One is, how much is each tent sold for in India, in rupees or the equivalent?
Yeah,
of Singapore
it's sold for US $200 at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And do you find that people can access $200?
No, they can't. So actually the way I had priced the tent initially was my idea was that this would be a $100 tent. And the reason I had priced it at $100 was because a lot of people in India pay about $1 a night to rent blankets for a family. So winters are about 4 months or 120 days, which means they spend about $120 a winter to rent blankets. And my idea was that instead of them having to pay that for blankets, they could actually buy these tents for the same price. And these tents would actually last for at least 2 seasons, which means they would have actually saved that $100 in the next season. But today, because of logistics and very small scale, we are not able to bring the price down to $100. So the tent it actually costs about $100, and the shipping is about $100. We are shipping them from China.
Okay.
But my eventual vision is to bring it down so that they can afford. So for example, the gentleman I showed, he has bought it for $40.
Okay.
That's what we have priced it currently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so through subsidizing it.
We are through donors, yeah,
sponsorship and
we are
donors.
subsidizing,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, my other question was going to be, whether you've considered actually, because ownership is important, so they do need to pay a certain amount, I think, to
Absolutely,
take
yeah.
care of it.
And also we are doing it because government doesn't like us so much, and they think that we are helping people to squat.
Yeah.
Once they own it, then it's their responsibility, and they anyways own plastic sheets and stuff.
Yeah.
And then we want them to take care of it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else with a question? Yeah.
Gosh, thank you so much. So motivating. I think the biggest call to action to me is what are you spending your time solving today? How can we help from a creative community perspective? Because obviously you have scalability issues. Like, what are the resources that you need that the folks in this room could give you support on?
Okay,
So-
yeah. I didn't come prepared with this. Because all I was thinking for the last couple of days was just the presentation and what questions would come up. But I'm sure, I think just the fact that you invited me here and I could speak to an audience has been helpful, and I think you are recording it, so I hope none of those corporations that I said, people outside of those will look at it. But I think, for us, really, getting the word out there, people to come on our website, I don't know, yeah. Yeah. Sure, yeah.
If there is anything, then I'll definitely be in touch with Prasson, and then we can spread the word or share it as well. But if there's also any call to actions,
Right.
We can look at that too. Any other questions? Yep.
Just a suggestion for a call to action. You're talking about people organizing like their birthday parties and things where they actually have the weatherhide and they ask for donations so that the tents can be subsidized for poor people in India. Do you want to just tell them about that?
Yeah. Thank you for helping me out. So there are various ways that actually people come in and help us at either individual level or corporate or organizational level. The easiest is just to go on our website and donate a tent or buy any of the other products that we've got there as well. But other than that, a lot of people do their small little money fundraisers for us, and we actually lend them our tents to be used as part of those events as well. And kids love it. My kids want me to put these tents in our small little living room where we actually have to move all the furniture around every time we have to do it. So kids love it. And so we think there are quite opportunities there. There was somebody who had her 40th birthday party recently, and she did a fundraiser for the tents as well, and she gifted about 5 tents in India. But the best thing about tents is that people don't have to depend on Billion bricks to gift it. If you have someone in your neighborhood who needs it, you could actually send it to anyone. So the power of changing lives lies with you, not with us. And Billion Bricks just wants to be a forum to keep creating innovative ideas like this and let others transform the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Any last question? Yep. Did you want to come up to? Sorry, can I just get you to stand up here? Oh, I need you on the mic.
Okay, just a quick question. Just now you mentioned that you can actually 3D print the tents.
Right.
So is it available as an open source kind of resource so that maybe you mentioned the shipping cost could be why the price is doubled, right?
Correct.
So is it possible that people can build their own tents using the designs that you have? So that it reduce the, they can just, wherever they are, they have a 3D printer, they just build something and it gets built and then made available to more people.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything that we do is actually, we don't protect our IP, is open source. In fact, we have somebody who's actually setting up a factory of these tents in the US, and we are giving them complete access to all the information, knowledge that we have on that. And the idea of 3D printing was the fact that today what happens in the shelter industry is most of the shelters in the world are manufactured in China, India, and Pakistan, and they're shipped across the world. And the idea of 3D printing was that you could actually set up small little factories wherever the need is. So Philippines always has these things of disasters. You could set up small factories there, or the method of stitching of this tent requires just nothing but a simple sewing machine. So it's very easy to transfer, and we are very open to it.
You mentioned the open source design is available on certain, on your website or?
Not at the moment. You can write to me and I can send you the files, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we
That's
haven't
good.
reached that level yet. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah.
Okay, so I think that's all the time for questions today. However, Prasson, you'll be here for a little bit more
I will be
after.
around, yeah.
Okay, great. And there is still some coffee outside, so you can share all of that amongst each other. But thank you so much. It really was a very insightful and amazing talk for this Friday morning. So please put your hands together again for Prasson.
Thank you.